All the recent talk of a blue wave this November has given Democrats real hope of taking back control of the House. Republicans, on the other hand, are still favored to hold the Senate. Or are they? There's new reporting today revealing some troubling trends for the GOP. One Republican operative telling Axios, quote, "Every metric leads you to one conclusion. The likelihood of significant Republican losses in the House and state and local level is increasing by the week." And then driving home this point, quote, "The depth of losses could be much greater than anticipated, and the Senate majority might be in greater peril than anticipated." The Associated Press highlights the 2-month sprint to Election Day, painting this picture. Quote, "Republicans have spent the primary season anxiously watching suburban voters, particularly women, peel away because of their disdain for Trump. The shift seems likely to cost the party in several key congressional races. And despite a strong economy, Republicans must also contend with the president's sagging approval rating and the constant swirl of controversy hanging over the White House." Joining me, MSNBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki, along with Cornell Belcher with Brilliant Corners Research, and Rick Tyler, a Republican strategist and co-founder of Foundry Strategies. Both are MSNBC analysts. Steve, first to you. What's it look like? Is the Senate up for grabs, potentially?
That's the amazing thing. You know, if 6 months, a year ago, you would have looked at the map and said, you know what, even in a good year, Democrats just don't have the numbers in the Senate. We had 3 new NBC Marist polls last week. If you were watching, you saw these. Look, Missouri, Claire McCaskill running for re-election, state that went for Donald Trump by almost 20 points. We got her dead even with Josh Hawley, the Republican there. How about this one in Indiana, another state Trump won by 20 points. Joe Donnelly, Democratic incumbent, up by 6 in our poll in that state. That was raised some eyebrows. And then there was this one in Tennessee, Republican-held seat. Bob Corker, he is retiring. Open race to succeed him. Phil Bredesen, Democrat, former governor. We got him up by 2 points. So you start seeing results like that in the Senate, and you say, hey, maybe that map is changing a little bit. And right now, this is subject to some change, but the battleground kind of looks like this. These red states, these are Republican seats. Democrats maybe have a shot at flipping. These blue seats, these are Democratic seats where Democrats are on defense. Every Republican gain here makes it tougher for the Democrats. The bottom line, though, is this. Democrats need a net gain of 2 seats. You got to get a net gain of 2 seats here, you know, not losing anything up here, not losing any more up in these blue seats. What would that look like in terms of the battleground map? Well, how about this? It's still very much an uphill fight for Democrats, but take those polls we just showed you. Let's say the Indiana, where Donnelly was up 6 in our poll, let's say that went to the Democrats. We have McCaskill tied there, so let's say McCaskill hangs on. That's a big if, but let's say she does. And let's say Tennessee, where we had Bredesen up 2, that flips. If all 3 of those go to the Democrats, you're kind of looking at a battleground right here with the Democrats needing 5. That is still a tall order, you know, to get 5 seats here. Maybe they could get Arizona. The polls would put Kyrsten Sinema ahead there. You know, Testers looked okay in Montana. Manchin's looked okay in West Virginia. Even when you start doing that, Democrats still need 2 more. So what you see, the totality of this, Katie, is the margin for error for Democrats. It's very slim. Look, if you lose in North Dakota, if Bill Nelson loses in Florida, and if Ted Cruz hangs on, then Republicans still hold the Senate, despite everything else I'm putting up here. But what you are seeing for Democrats when they start talking about this possibility of a wave is you are seeing a path on the Senate side that could start to exist here for them.
So let's talk about Texas, because Texas has been getting a lot of attention lately. And Rick Tyler, you're the person to ask about this, because you used to work for Ted Cruz when he was running for president. Beto O'Rourke is polling pretty tightly with Ted Cruz right now. Mick Mulvaney, the president's budget director, said Cruz isn't likable enough, that they're really concerned he might lose. And now right-leaning organizations are rerouting resources to Texas. What's going on?
Well, I think you got a candidate, Beto O'Rourke, who's just been a very interesting candidate and has run a tremendous campaign, and he's raised a ton of money. He's sort of electrified the left. I think Ted Cruz is likable enough in Texas to win, and he should win. The problem right now is, you know, this is a close race. This is anywhere between 0 percentage point and 4 points, which NBC has it at, and it shouldn't be. It should be a 10, 12, 15-point race. Now, here's the problem. This is a $50 million race right now, and when you have Club for Growth and Americans for Prosperity and the Koch brothers all diverting resources from races that they want to pick up, which just went through on the Democratic side, moving that money and those resources to Texas, that keeps the Republican Party from competing in other states. So Tennessee now looks like it could be a pickup because you have an unusual Democratic candidate there who was governor, a popular governor, Phil Bredesen, and he's run a statewide race before, and he was a popular governor. He could win Tennessee, and so that presents another problem for the GOP. But instead of trying to preserve that seat or pick up another seat like North Dakota or Missouri, they're going to be defending Texas, and that's a big problem for the Republican Party.
Cornel, I know you're a pollster, so you might not be the most unbiased for this question, but how much should we be relying on the polls right now? A lot of people are probably looking at the screen, looking at the polls, and thinking to themselves, well, everyone was wrong in 2016. What's so great about these polls in 2018?
I think, well, my head is still spinning from that Matt Schlapp interview defending the morality of Trump, which I think, by the way, is part of the structural problem that Republicans are facing an uphill battle, particularly with women voters right now. I'm going to step back. 2016, the polling was wrong in 2016. I think our narrative was wrong in 2016. The polling wasn't necessarily wrong in 2016. In all the head-to-head, in all the sort of four-way races, Hillary Clinton never got 51% support in any of those polls. It was always a really sort of close race. In the forced two-way, she did pull ahead. We had a narrative that it was that it was going to be a two-person race, and it was not. We had a lot of protest voters, a lot of Obama voters, especially young voters, protested their vote. So it was. I think our narrative was more wrong than the polling was. But to that point, polling is not supposed to sort of nail a horse race completely. It's supposed to give you a trend of what's happening, a snapshot of the landscape. We put too much weight on polling getting the horse race exactly. Although I will tell you, over the years, the polling has been doing better about getting the horse race exactly right. But the art of it is what is the electorate going to be?
I want to
get point.
One other question in before we have to go to the briefing. How much are you focusing on women voters, and is there potentially other voters other than the likely voters that could come out to vote?
And that's the point I was about to make, and thank you for that question, is I think we're going to have a different looking electorate, right? And part of the problem is us figuring out what the electorate is going to look like. I think you're going to have women who don't usually vote in a midterm election turn out. I think you're going to have minorities who don't usually vote in a midterm election turn out. I think you're going to have young people who don't usually vote in a midterm election turn out. So it will throw off some of the models, but I think if there's a wave election, you have to have a different electorate than Democrats typically have in off-year elections.
Cornel Belcher, Steve Kornacki, Rick Tyler, everyone, thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie.